and welcome to On the Air presented by AIRWAAV. I'm your host, Sydney Smith, and I'm here with current World's Strongest Man, Mitch Hooper. He secured first place at the 2023 World's Strongest Man competition, where he also became the first Canadian to win the title of World's Strongest Man, and he also most recently won the Arnold Strongman Classic in 2024. Besides being an athlete, he also has extensive knowledge about the mechanics and physiology behind being an athlete, so he has a lot of insights to share on one of his favorite brands, AIRWAAV. I'm glad you were able to set aside some time because we've been talking about this for a while, since Rogue, really, whenever I first saw you there, right?
Yeah, that was intentional just because, you got to make people want it, you know?
Yeah, of course. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Also, recently, I've heard that you recently became a dad. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, that's the whirlwinds. That's very good. It's funny, having this little external blob of uselessness totally dictate how you're going to go. You're like, are you going to sleep tonight? Are you going to sleep today at all? Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out.
I imagine that makes things much more difficult, especially with the recovery aspect of it, because you have a lot more things going on with that.
Yeah, my life before the baby was as full as it could have been. So now I haven't found it increased.
Fuller.
No, it can't get fuller. So I haven't found increased workload. It's just like today I was doing something for work and the baby was crying and my wife was down working out. So I just stopped working to go hang out with the baby for a bit. So it might make life easier, actually. It gives me an excuse to step away from work.
Okay. I love that for you. Glad it's going well for you, too.
And you know what? Too many people who are, you and I, we'll call ourselves the same generation, even though we look very different. There's too many people who are so cynical about having kids. And so it's my mission to just spread how lovely it is and how worthwhile it is. Because every single person was like, oh, your life's going to be over and it's horrible. Wait until the sleep. And like, yeah, it's fine. If it's the hardest thing you've ever done, then you're a bit of a loser, is my gentle opinion.
I like the gentle opinion. I think the world needs more of that type of energy because, yeah, people are very negative, and I'm glad you're seeing the positive in it.
That's right. That is right.
Oh, no. All right. As far as Strongman goes, the qualifying events were recently released. So do you have any initial thoughts on that?
Yeah. Look, I'm the best in the world because I'm pretty good at everything. And I think I probably have less apprehension than the other competitors around what the actual events are because to me it just doesn't really matter all that much. The events in the heats are deadlift ladder. I won that my first year at Worlds. Out of 30 competitors, I was number one. That was 2 years ago. We've got nickel stone walk, which I've set the world record in twice, and I just set the world record in the Dinny stone walk, so that's great for me. We've got a Viking press, and my overhead press is really strong. I'd say top 2 or 3 in the world. And then we have car walk, and I'm touted as the best yoker who's ever lived. So you put those together, and it's hard to imagine anything but a positive scenario. There's, of course, things that can happen if you don't execute, but if you go in and execute and I do what I can do, it should be through to the finals without too much dramas.
Out of those events, which one is your favorite?
Good question. I take a lot more joy in accomplishing something that is difficult for me. So say something like yoke. I literally don't train it because the first time I did it, I did 1,000 pounds, and that's what's in this competition. So it's not hard for me, and it doesn't feel like an accomplishment to do it. Say something like Viking press. My overhead power is something that I've needed a lot of help with. I needed to improve quite a bit, and it's come a long way. And so executing well in something like that gives me a lot of joy. So I think that's the one I'm most excited to get and do.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm excited to watch in these upcoming weeks how you do. And obviously, I think it's going to be very well per usual. It seems to always be that way. But We'll hope for that too.
Yeah, we're 15 podiums in a row. So I'm now at this stage where, as a observer of myself, I'm pretty confident in what I'm capable of, and I'm pretty confident I can go and execute what I'm capable of as well. So the apprehension is pretty low. Um, my mental strength is coming along as much as my physical strength at this stage.
Yeah, you have a lot of expertise and obviously accomplishments under your belt so far, especially being the world's strongest man. But it took a lot to get to this point, and not only in strongman, you had like a lot of athletic background before, running marathons, playing ice hockey, even playing some golf. So, can you talk some about how you originally got into the sport of strongman?
Yeah, well, I don't really consider myself a strongman first. I consider myself a healthcare professional first who happened to find strongman. When I graduated university with my undergraduate in kinesiology, I thought that I wanted to work in high performance, and I did. And I got a great job with a professional basketball team as their head strength and conditioning coach. I traveled around with them, and the end of the season came, and it just didn't give me what I thought it would in terms of personal joy and satisfaction. And I thought there's probably a bit more to life than just working as a strength and conditioning coach for me. And then I sought out options for more education overseas that landed me in Australia. But I'm big on experiencing what you ask people to do. And if I was going to ask people to be aerobically fit or lose weight or get stronger, I need to experience all of that myself. So that's when I got into bodybuilding. I lost about 110 pounds into a bodybuilding show. After that,
Wow.
I love to eat, and especially after a prep like that, you're like, I need extra food. So that's why I went to marathon running first, because my whole training background, I was always fighting being larger. I don't like to be a larger person. I don't like to stand out in a crowd, as funny as that might seem with who people know me to be now. And so I went to running because running burns a lot of calories, so I can eat a lot of calories. So I ran those marathons, and my genetic potential was pretty obviously above average at best. And so my best time was 3:24. I think that put me in the top 10% of finishers. But for me, you can either win something or you lose something. And I was losing in droves to people. I remember distinctly in my last marathon, I had a really, really strong start, too strong of a start, to be honest, which then turned into absolutely bombing the second half. But my finishing time was about 3.5 hours. Not terrible, well above average. But there's this guy who
That's really good.
It's not bad. Yeah. There's this guy who passed me who's like, he looked like a bit like Danny DeVito, and he had a shirt. He had a shirt on. He had this headband, and the shirt on the back said, "Old, fat, diabetic, ahead of you." Okay, I need. This is my end of running career, and then I moved to Australia, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I just happened to find a strength gym, and I went into powerlifting, won the national championship within about 9 months. Transitioned to strongman. COVID hit, so I did strongman training sort of casually. There weren't that many shows around. And then I was going to move back to Canada. I was going to give up strongman and start triathlons, which I still very much intend to do one day. And I got an invite to World's Strongest Man, which is pretty shocking because all I'd done is a couple of local competitions, a couple of state competitions. I did a 1,050-pound deadlift, which caught a lot of attention. But I never saw myself as a professional strongman or the world's strongest man, or I never thought I could do anything that I'm doing right now. And I just didn't let myself get in my own way, and here we are.
So I'm guessing you didn't anticipate being good at strongman.
I anticipate being good at anything that I try, to be honest. There's a lady who runs all of the Arnold stuff on the strongman side. And she had a cancer diagnosis about 10 years back, and I was talking to her about that. And when she got the diagnosis, she was given something like a 30% chance to 5-year life expectancy to be cured of cancer. And she said she was really bummed out by that. But then her husband gave her the perspective of, when is the last time you weren't in the top 30% of something? And that's sort of how my life has gone. Academically, I was usually well above average. Athletically, most things, pretty much everything I did, I was above average. And that's just my expectation for myself. Did I think I could be world champion? No. The first time I considered being a world champion was driving down to Worlds last year. And the overwhelming thought was just like, how strange would it be to call yourself the world's strongest man? So I think, to sum it up, intellectually I could get around it and I could understand how I could win, but emotionally, it certainly, it was months after winning for me to actually feel like I could say that, like, earn that title. And it probably won't be until well after I retire if it's actually hit me how cool the stuff I'm doing actually is.
Where do you think that need and desire to be great at everything you do comes from?
I think it comes from a bad place, to be honest with you. I think it comes more from just wanting to be adequate and wanting to be, um, to make my family proud, to make my now my daughter proud, make my parents proud, and prove my worth to myself. And that's something that I've struggled with for a very long time, and I think something that I'll probably struggle with for the rest of my life. But it does have a very positive outcome where if you constantly feel like you're under the gun, like you're uh, every day is Groundhog Day, sort of. Well, you get to find out who you are day after day when you step into the gym or when you go to work. And if you have high expectations of yourself, then you'll probably achieve pretty good things.
I mean, obviously, that mindset may not be the absolute healthiest thing ever, but it has gotten you to the top of the sport, the top in the world. How do you think that mindset, or what about it, is setting you apart from others along the way to help you get to the top?
Yeah, look, it's not healthy. And I think when you dissect any sport and you dissect any person at the top of any sport, they're probably not pushing their body to the absolute limit because they're so satisfied with how amazing they are. That's just not how the world works. That's not how people work. In terms of setting myself apart, I think psychologically, a lot of guys exist where I am. And a lot of people in the sport are, you get into it. And if you think about what the sport actually is, it's lifting really heavy weight totally by yourself. You don't get into that because you're looking for friends or community or anything. For me, it was objective self improvement along with relating to people that I was going to work with. But I think the edge that I do have is that I really value maintaining the other things in my life, whether it be my businesses or my relationships with my family. Um, I can keep everything in perspective pretty well. And I think when I can do that, the stakes drop significantly. And so, whilst I say every day it's you have to prove your worth and you have to go prove that you have something to be proud of. Uh, when it comes to competition day, I don't think that way at all, and I probably get more nervous and more amped around a training session because I find that to be the time. And around competition, I mostly my internal dialogues around um, life's just about being a good person and about doing the best that you can and trying to make the best impact you can and trying to make people feel good. And the thing that I always repeat to myself is that it's always about who you are, not what you do. And I might lift weights, I might be the world's strongest man, but one day I won't be. And when that day comes, I have to find a way to retain my sense of accomplishment, my sense of self worth. And the only thing you really have in the end is who you are.
I've noticed that too in, I guess, different videos on you and just like how you talk to others. I think it sets you apart from others in the best way possible. And you seem to focus not only on what you're doing in the gym and those accomplishments and wanting to be the best, but also on being a genuine person. How do you focus on more than just the monetary aspect of winning and accomplishments?
Well, I don't know if you're referencing something in particular, but I'll talk about it. When I won the Arnold last year, I was asked what it meant to me, and um, that was my first big strongman win, and a competition that a lot of people consider to be the pinnacle of strongman. And I was a bit overwhelmed at the time, and I was having a bit of a rough time going into the show mentally. And I said, it doesn't mean much, but it's a great stepping stone to do more. And that's really what I think of strongman. And some people misinterpret it as I'm going to use the sport and get out and try to get famous or something like that. It's not that at all. But now with the platform that I have, I can help to grow the sport of strongman. And my real ambition is to impact as many people's lives as 1 to 2 degrees as possible. I'm not looking to totally turn people around, but if they can just think about exercise, movement, health, injury in a slightly different way, in a slightly more positive way, and then I think that would be a great mark to leave on my career. So I think it's partially because I didn't grow up watching World's Strongest Man. I didn't grow up dreaming to be the world's strongest man. So I probably just put a little bit less weight behind the title than other people might. And it certainly rubs some people the wrong way. But like you said, I just try to be myself, and I check in with the people that I love. If my YouTube videos are coming across like me, if the jokes that I make on Instagram, is this all me? Have I changed at all? And I think everyone around me would consistently say, if you knew me at 20 and you knew me at 28, I've matured. But the accolades, they just don't matter that much to me. It matters a lot more what I'm able to do with them and the impact I'm able to make on people. Now that more and more people care about what I have to say.
I love that you're focused more so on the impact you're having and who you are as opposed to the accomplishments, which obviously those things matter to an extent, but I think oftentimes collectively as a whole, as people, no matter what we're doing, we get caught up in that as opposed to how we're treating people or really the impact we're having. So I think that's good, especially with your platform, that you're able to share that with others and help, I guess, regain a different perspective on it for others.
Yeah, and it's not to diminish anything about Strongman or the titles that I've won, because they obviously mean a great deal to me, and I dedicate a large part of my life to it. It's as much about protecting my mental health when I decide that I'm done as it is anything else, because I need to create multiple different things. One thing I need to create is a career after Strongman, because even if I continue on the track I'm on and I could fully retire from any work by the time I'm out of Strongman, well, you still have to fill your day with something. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to hire multiple employees. And I can't just turn around and tell them, like, business is over, we're done, we're packing it up, go find a new job. So I'm building plenty of stuff that's going to extend past Strongman. And that's really my goal. I always say I'm not a religious person. I'm not a spiritual person. I think when you die, you're dead, and that's that. And for me, it means that you better make hay while the sun shines, because the only thing you leave behind is whatever impacts you make, whatever lasting impression you make, however you make people feel. No one knows who very few people know who's the 1976 World's Strongest Man, who's the 1984 World's Strongest Man. It matters immensely in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, you're going to remember things that are a bit more substantive than who won a strength competition.
Yeah. And with that, you talked about when you died, that's it for you. And I remember I watched your video on YouTube called Rookie Year, and you said something similar to that in the video. And there's really few people that can extend their impact beyond what they do, such as being a strong man like yourself. So how do you plan to try to achieve having a lasting impact on people? You touched on it some, but besides it with how you interact with others, but I guess how do you think you would do that?
Yeah, it's really a goal that if you put the intention behind it, it can't be failed and it can't be achieved. And that's really what I set out to do. So small moments along the way, I'll watch a strongman stream of a competition that I'm not in, and I'll see people in lift heavy, be kind shirts on the sideline. And that message is getting spread out there, and that has nothing to do with me, but I've helped to grow the brand and to push that forward. And obviously that's my brand. And so small things like that, building that brand out, then doing community outreach work, putting this stuff out on social media. There are things I could put on YouTube that I know would get a huge amount of views, but I would choose not to put it out there because I don't think it's going to make people's lives better. So I think in a free market like we have in North America, the beauty of that is that people vote with their dollars. And when they do, you can grow a sustainable business. And if you're doing so ethically, then you can continue to grow that business. And you've got a pretty good scorecard of how well you're going, how many people you're impacting. And so it really gets back to growing business for me, and growing business where it's education on coaching, where it's education on exercise, where it's, say, on Instagram, it's entertainment and making people laugh. And in my board at my office, it's got at the top always improving people's physical and mental health by 1 to 2 degrees, or improving as many people's mental and physical health by 1 to 2 degrees as possible. And that's that. I think if things went bananas and I did everything that I could possibly imagine, well, one day Arnold's going to die. And the Arnold Classic, what happens to that? And I'm sure that continues. But is there a Hooper Classic? Is there something that's a fitness and wellness expo that I could help run? Is there, could I be on the advisory board of the government of Canada on what we could do with our healthcare policies? Could I be involved in politics? I think there are endless ways in which the goal could be achieved. The important thing for me is that my intention remains the same, because unfortunately, a large part of it's out of my control. If I got hurt and I never won anything again, well, it's going to be an uphill battle to become as famous as The Rock. Yes. But if I won every strongman contest for the next 5 years and I had a great PR team and I went on every news station, well, that starts to become a little bit more possible. And so even 18 months ago, I would have told you my goal is just to give my family a better life than I had growing up, which is hard because I grew up very well off. And, um, that was my objective. And then as my profile grew, I realized that that's a bit of a shitty objective because I can accomplish that very, very easily at the moment. And so it becomes, well, now it's impacting the world. And where does that go? I don't know exactly. It's open-ended. The clothing brand will continue. The coaching will continue. The social media will continue. But what could it become? I think if I could tell you what I'm doing at 55 sitting here right now, I would have failed my mission. It should be something that I haven't even considered because I haven't thought to dream that big.
I love that mindset, and I think that sets you apart not only from your accomplishments, but also just like as a person, setting you apart from others and what other people are showcasing as well. But I want to take a step back and talk about your career as a strongman as a whole. So how would you describe your rise in strongman and what keeps you in it at such a high level?
I describe the rise as it's unparalleled. I think I'd be consensus top 10 of all time, and I've only been a professional in the sport for less than 2 years. I've been incredibly lucky and incredibly fortunate. I think I say that all the time, and people often don't realize what I mean. And the reality of sport is that I don't control if my bicep decides to pop off or not. I don't decide if I'm genetically capable of lifting the weight that I can. I just happen to be. So there's work to be done, and there's work that you have to do to expose that. But it's hard to fathom how fast things have happened for me. So that's really how I describe it. And what motivates me to stay at the top, it's so fluid. Like the days after I won World's Strongest Man and I went back to training, it was really confusing because I accomplished more already than I ever imagined I could have. So what do we do now? And sometimes I just hate to lose. I hate to lose more than I love to win. So sometimes it's negative motivation and I don't want to lose my title. Sometimes it's that I see the bigger picture and I see how doing well in strongman will help not just myself and my family, but achieve my greater mission. And it just gets back to the root of I just absolutely love to get in and train hard. Right now, I'm a week out from World's Strongest Man, and this is the hardest training I ever have to do because I'm not allowed to do what I'd like to. I'd like to go in and work hard and lift big weights, but constantly my coach is saying, "Don't do it. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this." And when that's your relationship with your coach, that's what's going to make you really good. That my motivation sometimes is it's just my mental health break for the day. I treat heavy lifting as much meditation as I do anything because meditation by definition is that you're just intently focusing on one thing for a given period of time. And if you're lifting a big deadlift, like if you're thinking about something else, shit's going to go poor. So it's for me, that's sort of what it is in the same breath. So it's a combination of a lot of things and it does change day to day. Sometimes I am just pissed off and I like to lift heavy weight and I'm a bit grouchy, but I always find a way to get it done. And in the end, it's just one of the non-negotiables for me. Even if I wasn't competing, training is just something that I do and I will always do whether I'm competing or not.
Yeah. You also have this massive reach to people in a platform that I think you are using really for good. But what is your favorite part about maybe not necessarily being a strongman, but even the world's strongest man?
My favorite part, I got to be honest with you, people probably, like I said, people don't know me as me. They know me who is online and who I've become. But by nature, I'm very introverted. I would much rather sit in a
Really?
room and watch a movie than go to a party. I in the past have had difficulty interacting with people in large group settings. And part of the reason I went to Australia was to just improve on that and to just have that beat out of me. So I am a little bit more sociable, and I do things because I find it a responsibility. I find it a responsibility as world's strongest man, and as someone who is an employer, to do everything I can to be successful for them and for the business and for the greater good of people. I have learned to love going on social media. I have learned to love to make the jokes. I've learned to love to shoot YouTube videos. But none of that stuff is something that I relish. I don't like to be well known. I don't like to be in a restaurant and have people come up to me. But it's such a privilege that I just can't forget that. And my life is filled with so much good that I can't get hung up on the things that I don't like. And the best part is genuinely being able to provide a really steady life for my family, um, and the interactions that I have with fans. And when they're talking about the impact that I make on their life, that's the stuff I really like. The process is difficult a lot of the time. The recording the videos, the whatever. I do have fun and I do enjoy it, and I've learned to love it. But it's certainly nothing in my nature.
You definitely would not strike me as an introvert at all, because even from the first time I met you, you did not give me introvert vibes at all. And you're always like so outgoing with everyone that I see. So, and your videos is not giving introvert.
Yeah, and I think it's just a testament that people can grow and people can change. But still, what would I like to do tonight? Give me every option in the world, but get to hang at home, watch the hockey game, and just literally just drink Diet Coke to my heart's content, and that's
That's
about
so
it.
funny. Yeah, I would never guess. So
Yeah,
people really do change. And how you said you went to Australia to get out of your comfort zone, maybe that did help some too, in the beginning of it at least.
100%, 100%. Yeah, like in university, in my undergrad, I could count on one hand the number of parties that I went to. On one hand, the number of times I went out to the bar. It just was not in my makeup. I wasn't interested. I went to Australia and I changed that behavior dramatically, because the reason I chose to go so far was I want to go as far away from every person I know and every support system I have, because I know this is something about me that's not good. And the same way that I go about training, where if my overhead press is not what it should be, that's now my favorite thing to go train and what I'm itching to train. It's the same thing with personality and personal development. I know that I need people to help me get to where I want to go and to help me achieve my long term goals. And when I realized that, I knew that I need to do something as dramatic as possible to improve that as much as possible. Where now I also don't fake who I am. I genuinely, when I'm around people, I am genuinely having a good time. I'm genuinely happy to chat to people. But when I reflect on what my nature is, that hasn't changed at all.
Yeah. So, in talking about what you've accomplished so far, I think there's a lot of moments leading up to those, or even in the process of a certain competition, that are rather nerve wracking. So, what do you think has been the most nerve wracking moment for you in your career so far?
Oh wow, wow. There's been a lot. I'll share a quick story, because the reality is I am not I'm not faking it at all. That I firmly believe it's who you are is way more important than what you do. If I go lose World's Strongest Man, and if I lost because I didn't put in a good effort, well, I would be heavily disappointed. But if I did what I could do and someone else beat me, like, hats off, good for you. But the one thing that sticks out to me of like, I did World's Strongest Man in 2022. I won my group, and that's sort of unheard of for a rookie. And I was the first rookie ever to win the first three events in the heats. Then between the heats and the finals, people were telling me I was going to podium and I was going to win and whatever. And then I won the first event in the finals. And then the second event in the finals, I did okay. And at that point, I was, I believe, in the lead for the competition. And I was doing an event called Power Stairs. And what the event is sort of irrelevant, but basically my family was back behind me watching, and I started off so strong. And then I'd never done the event before, so I was very inefficient, and I ended up like I couldn't get the thing up the stairs, and I ended up in fourth or fifth in the event or something. And when I finished, I was sort of like, okay, whatever, like learn for next time. I turned around and I saw the faces of my family, and they were so disappointed. And they were disappointed because they thought I would be disappointed. So then I was sad because they were then upset for me, and it's like this circle. It's like that's really the
Yeah.
difficult. That's really the difficult sort of interpersonal thing. But most nerve wracking, it has to be World's Strongest Man last year before the last event. It's sort of the highest stakes. And when I think about the last event, I am not thinking I could win World's Strongest Man. I'm not thinking I could have a good stone run and win the trophy. I'm thinking this could change my life. This could change the life of my family. So you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. And the challenge with World's Strongest Man is events do not happen fast. So you'll do an event and finish, and then you'll sit in the tent for
A long waiting time.
2.5, 3 hours while you're contemplating how your life could be totally different or fuck it all up. And
Yeah.
that is so difficult. So I would say that. And that's one of the things about World's Strongest Man that people don't realize. Like, it's not the NBA finals where coach draws up a play and you go out and you go shoot the shot within 20 seconds. You are stirring and sitting and stirring for hours upon hours. And I think that's where my more balanced mental approach, it really, really benefits me in a World's Strongest Man type format. But yeah, I could tell you so many nerve wracking experiences. You get in your head and there's so much self talk of, my career started coming 8th at Worlds, and then my self talk was, well, this could just be a fluke. And then I came second at my next show in Europe. Then I came second at my next show. Then I came third at my next show. And then I was winning the one after. And then my self-talk became like, oh, I've lost all the other shows. Like, maybe I'll mess this one up. Like, maybe I can't do it. And then I do it. And then it's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe winning was a fluke. And so then you put the pressure on yourself. And that's where I say my mental game is getting much stronger, where I just don't have that self-talk anymore. I know who I am as an athlete. I know what I can do. And if I do it, that's great. If I don't do it, well, we'll figure something out.
The pressure you put on yourself, I feel like, is definitely the hardest part of it, because like there is maybe some pressure from like outside, but being in your own head all the time, I think definitely creates its challenges for sure. And you didn't even think that you could be the world's strongest man, and yet you've achieved that. So once accomplishing that, what else is there that you're hoping to accomplish in your career?
Nothing. If I never won anything again, I would look back at my strongman career as such a blessing and more than I ever could have imagined. That being said, it just gets back to I love training and I hate losing. So I am better this year than I was last year with that mentality. And I just don't have the pressure on myself anymore to win things because I've done it. I know that I can do it, and I have, and I've got the title. And to me, you have either won the World's Strongest Man or you haven't. If I told you, Sydney, I won World's Strongest Man when I was 27, and there's no world in which you would respond like, "Oh, how many times did you win?" That's just not how it works. It's either you won or you didn't. So I have nothing left that I need to prove. The reason that I continue with the sport is because I love it, and I absolutely love to train, and I love what it's doing for my life and for the people around me and for the people that I'm able to impact. But there's no chip on my shoulder that if I stopped enjoying the sport tomorrow, I would stop doing the sport tomorrow.
So with that, I'd like to hear a little bit of your insights and wisdom, I guess, on your overall mindset in life. So what would be a quote or piece of advice that you've lived by or that you consistently think of that has helped you either as a person or as an athlete or even both?
It's just my brands. I have it tattooed on my thighs. I get it on all my merch. It's lift heavy, be kind. And I think if you put kind things out there, generally speaking, people will be kind back to you. It helps your mental health, and lifting heavy improves your physical health. And I can go on a whole tangent around how. But I think if you do those two things, and those two things are your intention, it's very simple, but you should be able to live a pretty productive life.
Yeah, I would very much agree. Okay, so now I would like to talk about some of AIRWAAV and just your AIRWAAV story in general, because you are very involved with AIRWAAV, using it for all your training and competitions. So I think it'd be helpful to hear from the World's Strongest Man your story with that. So can you tell me how you were even introduced to us in general?
Yeah, I had no idea who you were. I had an AIRWAAV sent to me in the mail. It was like December of 2022, and that was it. There was no message about it. There was nothing. Just a mouthpiece, and I figured someone had sent it for as a Christmas gift or something. And the Arnold was not long out, so I molded it and I used it at the gym the next day. And when I used it, it made an immediate impact. And I basically said to myself, it either makes a difference right away or I'm not using it at all because this competition is too important. And proof is in the pudding. I didn't start working with you guys until after the Arnold. And the Arnold in 2023, my first major victory, I had the AIRWAAV in for every single event. At first, I behave very differently when I talk general advice and when I talk about myself. With general advice, I need evidence and I need solid backing. For myself, I'll try anything. And if it feels good, it feels good. And I had that attitude for quite a while, that, you know what, it just feels good. And then when we had gotten introduced properly and I started to think about working with AIRWAAV, I went and did the research. I went onto your website and saw the research you presented, which is usually a very skewed picture of things. So I thought, okay, this sounds too good. This is surely not true. I went in onto Google Scholar, onto PubMed, and I started looking at the research around the mouthpiece and the benefits that it has. And it's relatively conclusive. I really haven't found a contradictory study that using a mouthpiece is beneficial for, for things that don't impact me, like aerobic output, but also for things like power. Not to mention things like your health of your teeth when you're grinding them. So it just makes so much sense. And on top of that, when you invest your time into anything, you're looking to get the best return that you can get. And it's pretty obvious that people are investing huge amounts of time into the gym and huge amounts of money into the gym with memberships and equipment and whatnot. If you can talk about a product that's $50 that could dramatically improve your ability to perform in the gym, and it's very non-intrusive and you could wear it for your whole session, well, it's just such a no-brainer to me. It's such an easy thing for me to promote and talk about because the evidence is there and there will be outliers who don't benefit from it, but on the whole, people do, and people do get better. Yeah. We've seen it. I think I was one of the first strongmen to start using it. And now, if we're talking about the top 10 at World's Strongest Man, you probably have half the guys using it right now. And it probably is a downstream effect in part because I'm using it, but...
You're a trendsetter.
Yeah, I'm an influencer. But they wouldn't use it if it didn't help them as well, right?
Yeah.
There's no contract that any of us would sign with any company that would impede our ability to perform well, because that's going to hurt us more than anything.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, you're seeing more and more guys with the AIRWAAV piece in. To my chagrin, you guys are signing some of them. Don't know why. Thought I was good enough.
No idea.
But,
especially at that high of level, you're not going to be using something that's going to be getting in the way of your performance. And I think that's a testament to show the impact that it has, especially so many of y'all at a high level are using it.
Yeah, and the competitors' products, unnamed, people can guess who they are, they're shit. Like, they are huge, and they totally get in the way of your ability to breathe. Never mind your ability to perform. The AIRWAAV is maybe 20% size of any other competitor's mouthpiece in our space. And I think people get it mistaken a little bit that it's strongman, so we need to be big and thick and tough and durable. That's just not true. I've been sent probably 10, 15 AIRWAAVs by you guys, and I genuinely still use the first one that I molded. That's still my first choice. And I can't think of another product, anything, shirt, shoe, training piece of equipment, anything that I would use for 18 months at a time. But the AIRWAAV is housed, and I don't really know how because it's a really small piece of plastic. It doesn't look overly strong, but that thing has stood the test of time for me. And if I was a consumer, I literally would have only had to buy one, and it would have lasted me for a year and a half and still going.
Yeah, I've only been using the first one I got too, and I use it every single day on either strength or the aerobic stuff, no matter what it is,
Yeah.
and it holds up well, and I can tell a difference. And it's doesn't seem like at first that it's going to really impact your performance and all, but it does.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important is that at first it doesn't feel like it's going to impact your performance because it is not intrusive. It doesn't get in the way. It doesn't feel like a major difference. So it's to me it's a benefit, and then you experience what it's like after. I think one interesting point to note is I actually don't use it all the time. I will use it tactically if I want to increase my loads. So if I'm doing a session and say I've had a couple of setbacks during this prep, super normal, but some bicep issues where bicep was feeling like it wanted to come off. Well, I just don't use the AIRWAAV for a bit, meaning that I can work hard, but the load on my biceps is going to be slightly lower, so it's a little bit more protective. And then when I'm ready to compete or I'm ready to lift at a high level or hit a new PB, then the AIRWAAV goes in. Psychologically, I know I'm ready. Physiologically, it has its benefits, and then everything lines up. But I actually use it as a training aid that I'll take in and out depending on what I want to achieve.
Yeah. Now, there's still many strength athletes who don't wear a mouthpiece. So if we take AIRWAAV out of the conversation in general, why would strength athletes want to wear a mouthpiece? Or why should they?
Yeah, well, if everyone did, I'd be like 25th in the world or something. So let's not. Let's just
I'm so sure.
go for the casual view. But I think, okay, first you've got, it's very common to grind your teeth. And so tooth damage is very common in strength sports. So that's going to be one. Second, if we look at the research and the actual physiological response, well, let's think about where nerves start in our brain. Well, obviously nerves start in our brain, then they go down our spinal cord. And there's this really interesting principle that disabled people, if they say exercise their left arm because their right arm isn't working, let's not say disabled, but someone who's broken their right arm, you train your left arm, your right arm gets stronger. It's called cross education. This happens between your legs, between your arms as well. And traditionally, this is a downstream effect. So if you strengthen one leg, it will strengthen the other, but it won't strengthen your arms. If you strengthen your arms, it will strengthen your legs. And so if we think we increase neural output starting at the jaw, those are the highest nerves in our brain. It's increasing the thresholds or decreasing the threshold to be able to activate the muscles in the rest of your body. So muscles, they either are totally on or totally off. You can't lightly contract something. You can only contract part of the muscle, but it's 100% on or off. And so if we can get muscles close to the threshold, when you go to contract, you're going to be more explosive and get more fast twitch muscle fibers firing straight off the bat because we're stimulating the nervous system from the mouth down. And so whole body strength and stability will increase. And if you use the AIRWAAV, you're going to experience that on day one, just like I did. Now, the exercise I was doing when I experienced it was very controlled in our world. So I was doing pin press with a log, where I had the log sort of 6 inches above my head, and I was just doing the lockout portion of it. You know what you're capable of on an exercise like that. There's no like clean and jerk or a snatch technique where you hit it or you don't. It's pure strength. And that's where I noticed it first. That's where it was coming through, and that's where I noticed the benefit. And if you notice a benefit in something as cut and dry as that, well, it's going to carry over to all of your lifts. So we've got the research to back it up. You've got the physiological explanation, and you've got the practical experience. And again, it's $50. It's just like it's 2 weeks of your gym membership, and you'll be able to get more out of it for the long run.
Now, when you first used it, one, you didn't really know exactly who it was from or what exactly was happening there, but did you start with a certain lift and then expand it into more aspects of your training, or did you just go full force using it in everything that you were doing?
Yeah, well, look, as a general rule, anything I get in the mail, I'll put in my mouth. So I apply that to AIRWAAV as well. But I'm a person who I'm all in or I'm all out. And when I started using it, there was benefit. So I started using it for absolutely everything, and I still do. Any event in competition, I'll use it. The only time I don't use it, if I want to accomplish something great, is if I forget to put it in before I put tacky on for Atlas stones. And you don't want tacky on your mouthpiece. So that's the only time that I'm like, can't do it. Yeah, otherwise, the proof is in the pudding. Watch me at competitions. You'll see it hanging out of my mouth because I play with it. It's just a no-brainer. And it was a no-brainer at the time. since wearing the AIRWAAV, I literally have not been off a podium. I've won more than half of the shows that I've competed in. And in professional strongman, for people who don't know it, we don't have the same events in every show. So it's extremely rare to be good at multiple shows. It's extremely rare to win World's Strongest Man and still do well when you're on PR tours and stuff like that. It's extremely rare to do well through an entire competition season. And AIRWAAV is one of my consistents that helps me to perform.
Well, we like to see you up on the podium, so keep using AIRWAAV and then we'll keep seeing you on the podium. So it didn't really take you any time to get used to?
No. Actually, funny. Day one, it was fine, and I thought it was really good. And it was only after about a month of using it that I realized I had it on the wrong side of my mouth because I'm used to hockey mouth guards.
Oh my gosh! Yes.
Yeah, even that, it was fine. Like I noticed no issue at all with it. When I flipped it around, of course, that was even better.
Then it worked really how it was supposed to work.
Yeah, but the adjustment process was next to nothing, and I think part of that comes from I would estimate it to be maybe a third as intrusive as a custom hockey mouth guard, and that's something I was very used to growing up. And you can have conversations with it. I can speak to the camera with it in. You'd hardly even know if I had it in if I was talking to you right now.
Well, that's kind of all the questions I have for you today, unless you have something else that you would like to share while we're on.
The only thing I'd leave it with is I think when athletes are endorsing products, you got to be really careful whether to trust them or not. But as the world's strongest man, I have the choice to choose pretty much whoever I want to work with. And I'm really fortunate for that. And I've never worked with someone who I don't believe in their product, don't trust their product. And AIRWAAV is much the same. So if I didn't think that this was the best product out there and I didn't think it improved performance, there's literally no rationale I could come up with as to why I would be on the podcast with you right now, as to why I would promote it, as to why I would work with you guys. And so hopefully people can take that as proof in the pudding, and all it takes is a try. I will put one more caveat. The only one that actually works is my signature version, so take that into consideration.
Go check out that one, the Mitch Hooper edition.
On average, it will help you, and it will help you get more return from your time for your training.
Well, I hope people will take your word of advice and try AIRWAAV, and even the Mitch Hooper AIRWAAV. They can try that one out. That will be good too. But thank you for sharing all your insights about AIRWAAV and your career in general. I really enjoyed hearing more about that, and I'm glad that we finally got to get on the podcast and talk about it too, since we've been talking about it for several months, just to have more of an anticipation up to us talking.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for having me, and we'll speak to you soon.
Of course. Good luck at World's Strongest Man too. I'll be rooting for you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. See you, Mitch. Thank you. Well, that's all for today's episode of On the Air. Thank you all for listening, and thank you, Mitch, for joining me. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to purchase your own AIRWAAV mouthpiece if you want to break your best and unlock your full athletic potential. Be sure to check out Mitch Hooper's special AIRWAAV as well. If you made it this far, be sure to use code OTA15 for 15% off your next purchase. Drop any questions that you have about AIRWAAV in the comments below, and see you next time.